look at my work now coaching people and why I love being on a podcast called Inner Business is that a lot of it is in our mind and stories we either create about money, stories we've accepted about money. Most of those could be true, not true. And depending on some of those core money scripts that we have, it kind of indicates what are maybe some of those inner things we need to change so that we can create a better story in our financial statements that lead to better profit for us.
Welcome to Inner Business, the podcast that delves deep into the soul of entrepreneurship. My name is Selena Woodward, seasoned business owner, qualified business coach, and intuitive guide. I'm going to offer you actionable steps to increase your revenue whilst we explore how you are showing up in your business. Let's explore the blocks and connect the dots on your journey to business fulfillment. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Business Podcast. As always, I am your gracious host, Selena Woodward, the business coach who loves to ask you, what is your business trying to teach you? And today I am joined by the wonderful Brian Rump. Now, Brian was actually my coach mentor for the Coach Builder program for Business Made Simple. But Brian is also a financial whiz. Let me read you his official bio here. So he is a business coach. Of course he is. A really good one. He's a certified trauma of money practitioner, a Business Made Simple coach, a StoryBrand guide, and my favorite bit, a consulting hypnotist. Woohoo. So Brian is a former commercial banker and a government grant consultant who helps businesses secure loans, funding, and helps them grow businesses. For about 20 years, he's been doing all of this. Over in, when he speaks, you'll hear his accent, Canada. Welcome, Brian. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I don't even notice my accent. So
well, you wouldn't. It's normal for you.
Yeah, definitely. Very normal for me. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
No, you're welcome. So I would love everybody to get to know you. That was the very formal, bio. And I could hear lots of really cool things in there. But tell us, if you had like 5 minutes, how would you introduce Brian Rump?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I'm not really sure who the real Brian is. But I will say that one of the things that, if I could tie all of those things I've done together and kind of where I'm going, the common thread and theme is really about story and money stories. And I think if we look at hypnosis is all about suggestion accepted and stories we've accepted. And when I look at my journey, kind of understanding banking and funding and business and loans, one of the earliest moments that got me into that was when it clicked that I could look at financial statements and see the story it was telling. Mm-hmm. And as I pursued what I learned and grew my career, and I came up with a lot of things I didn't even know were coming up. And if I could look at my work now coaching people and why I love being on a podcast called Inner Business is that a lot of it is in our mind and stories we either create about money, stories we've accepted about money. Most of those could be true, not true. So if I were to talk about me and my career, it's really about where I'm going and helping people kind of identify those stories and scripts, find the ones that they're not helping us get to where we want to go, and how do we rewrite those and then rewrite our future using tools that aren't commonly used when we typically talk about money. So I don't know if that's like a pitch or really about me, but that's the stuff I love thinking about.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about kind of how I use this in the future more than kind of the list of things that I've done in the past. Because to be honest, working with a big money institutions, you buy into a lot of systems and cycles that kind of further traumatize people and aren't actually that helpful in creating the businesses that our community and our world needs.
Wow, that was a very big statement there. Wow, okay. There's so many things that I love about what you've just said. First of all, you know that we both share a passion for story. That's how we bumped into each other, working with Business Made Simple and StoryBrand and all that kind of thing. And also my background as an English teacher means that I'm infinitely qualified in story, obviously. Plus, I am a very creative genius. So there you go. So story is important, absolutely. What I love about that is there's no way in the world that I have ever looked at a financial statement and got excited about the story. Now, obviously, I look at the financial statement and it tells me the story of, well, how much profit have I made and how much have I spent and how much have I put away to the tax man. Yay. And I guess I'd love to unpack that with you, because what I'm realizing in a business-wise as I'm talking, and this is all coming to me as I'm going here, is that there probably are stories that are happening for me as I'm looking at that profit and loss or my profit first spreadsheet, which I do every month. You know, like I am probably judging myself on whether or not the profit box has gone up or down, or whether or not I've spent too much, you know, like there's going, and I'm already hearing that narrative is starting to sound quite judgy. And quite mean. Yeah. Is that what you mean by the stories, or do you mean like the KPIs? Tell us.
So I love how you just said that, and this conversation is going to go where it needs to go, because on one hand there is that I look at the box and is it green or is it red, and then I start judging myself, and there's shame. So maybe next month I don't look at it. So there's that whole element of business. Where it started for me was before I even really got interested in story. And I will say that I was really good at getting government grants. And what I realized when I went through StoryBrand was, I've been accidentally using most of this. And I could have been so much better if I was using the whole kind of framework. That's an aside. But really it was about what are the drivers of some of the key ratios we look at, and understanding things like, at the time I worked part-time for a hardware store, and I was like, if my, inventory turnover rate is a certain amount, what I want to do is, in theory, if I could order every week on the truck exactly what was going to be sold that week, and by the time the new truck came, there was nothing left. That's the ideal. That's not ever going to happen. But I could see the story of some of those ratios, and then being able to say, there's too much inventory, or you have a bunch of stuff that didn't sell. And I could just see that. And when I was a commercial banker, there would be a lot of times where you go visit the business, and before you got there, if you had the financial statements, I would start telling myself, okay, this is what this place is going to look like. It's going to be, and I could tell, and it still is true, like it's going to be dirty, cluttered. The employees are going to be disorganized and look kind of grumpy. And I think I've always been right in terms of what it looks like. I also can look at a place and kind of guess what the financials might look like if I haven't seen them yet. And I'll share with you that I got to go to Nashville and the Business Made Simple headquarters. And we drove by where the headquarters is, and someone was like, that's the Business Made Simple headquarters. And already in my mind, I was like, that's probably a pretty good business, because it's in a spot where like it's not flashy, but it's like a nice looking building. Things are nice and neat. You look at the cars in the driveway there was one Porsche, which we know who owned the Porsche. I wonder who
that belongs to. Yeah.
And then there was another really, really nice car. We can maybe guess who drives that. And then the rest they were all very nice vehicles, but not super nice. So it tells me, it's a professional place. So I'm starting to go through all of these kind of stories before I even get into a place. And I didn't even know that was happening, but that's part of what I love doing. And where this helps us or hurts us, and I've learned in, becoming a hypnotist, is everything is about suggestion, and I take that as story. And we pick up these stories as children, and we accept them as fact sometimes. And if we're not given a story about something, we'll create one. So sometimes we'll see things like in Canada, I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but in Canada, people might see success as I drive a big fancy pickup truck. So they accept this story that to be a good, solid business, I need a big truck with the letters on it. And that becomes a truth to them, that if they don't have that, they feel like a failure. And that's kind of one example of, these stories we accept. And then as I work with people, typically, we're all a little bit crazy entrepreneurs, and we all got some stuff in our past that probably leads us to working for ourselves and this drive. So it helps us get to a certain point, but it also limits us. And depending on some of those core money scripts that we have, it kind of indicates what are maybe some of those inner things we need to change so that we can create a better story in our financial statements that lead to better profit for us.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. So in Australia, we have utes. They are definitely a status symbol. But yeah, you're right. There's these status symbols. There are these things that we learn. And I think back to my money story. I had huge issues in my money story when I was building my previous business that were really holding me back. And I laughed when he said, oh yeah, I've looked at the number. I don't like it. So I probably won't look next month. Like, there were times when I was building that 6-figure business where I just didn't even know what was in the bank account. I just didn't want to know. As long as the bills were being paid, and I used to do that thing where as long as there was a certain amount in the account, then I didn't need to look, right? Not a good way to run a business, because I don't have any information then. And I couldn't actually grow the business past a certain point without learning to get over that, because I can't play the game. I can't play the numbers game. I can't make informed choices if I'm hiding like Homer Simpson in the hedge and I'm too afraid, like backing away. Those numbers are getting big now. This looks like a proper business. I'm not sure I'm ready for this. That's what was going on.
And that makes you normal, makes you human.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God, that's the first time anyone has said that. Thank you so much.
It's very common. And I think, so one of the reasons I don't love my business name as Profit Coach is people hear that right away, and usually it elicits a stress response of like, profit. And they think,
it's going to ask me about profit. I don't know how to answer that. Yeah.
Or they're like you back then, and it's like, well, I just look and I kind of run it, but I'm afraid of everything. And then they're afraid to talk to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to be afraid to talk to me, because it makes you normal, and we're also programmed, and we accept these suggestions that we need to be this savvy financial whiz. We're so focused on taxation, or we're focused on these big money strategies that we think we should be doing, that they really hold us back in our business, because they probably don't apply to us. So people think, well, I don't know about, trusts and these advanced tax planning things, which probably don't even apply to you. So then you're just afraid to even get into it. And
oh my God, yes, I need to tell you a story there. Right? That is so true. So 2 things pop up for me. First of all, the clients that I work with who are terrified of hitting the point where they then have to get serious because they have to start paying what we call GST here. So that's about $70,000. If you turn over $70,000, you have to start doing proper tax, right? And it gets serious. And that story guaranteed, if that's running, is holding them back. They're never even going to get anywhere. Like, they're not going to be paying themselves a good wage because they're terrified of hitting that line and then having to speak to a real accountant and having to acknowledge that they have a business. Like, that's a huge story. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. But I'm here to tell you that as you grow your business, and if you're brave enough to step over that line and register yourself as proprietary limited or go through a family trust, and you get yourself a great accountant, all the games that you can play, and obviously very, very legal, sensible games.
Yeah.
But there's a whole world that opens up to you there that it becomes quite dopamine driven for me. Like, it's kind of like fun. Like, I'll talk to my accountant and be like, right, okay, we've got this much coming in. It's looking like we're going to hit this. How do we pay the least tax? You know, like, it's actually quite fun. And you need the accountant to do that for you. You don't need to do that. You just need to know. You have to look at the bank account, though, to be able to play those games. So, yeah, those are two things
and that's
that popped
where,
up.
I always encourage people, like, you don't need to know that yet. Grow your business. There's a guide who can help you. Mm-hmm. And when those things make sense financially, you'll have the money to pay for them.
Yes.
And they should kind of cost what the benefit is.
Yes.
Or there's reasons to sort it out then. And all of this stuff, so what it does is it limits us in it actually discourages business. So if I could talk for a moment about trauma of money, which, if you're listening to this, check out Trauma Money's website. Their Trauma of Money on Instagram. It was started by Chantel Chapman in Canada. It's an international program. I will say there's the trauma of money is kind of a 6-step process in terms of unpacking. And the first phase is kind of looking at your window of resilience, and it's a mind, body, and money phase. So we're not even talking about our numbers and stuff yet.
Okay.
Second phase is we're kind of visioning, reimagining capitalism, how we do things in our business. And then we kind of get into the phase where we're doing an inventory of what we have kind of personally and in our business. And that is kind of the intro of so many people stop and they don't go into business or they don't carry things on because they run into that resistance at that point. Mm-hmm. And what happens is it just, like, big capitalism wins. So because it's a discouraging. So even like in Canada, our HST GST number is 30,000, not 70. Oh. So your government should talk to our government and maybe raise that up a little bit. But people are like deathly afraid to go above that line. And all that happens is the world doesn't get what you're providing. And the big capitalist businesses end up winning because they get to serve everyone with what they're doing.
I love that. That is such a fiery statement. Like, listeners, tune in. What do you reckon? Like, we're saying, like, if you do not get over this fear, the big guys win again. And you are not going to get your voice out there, and you are not going to fulfill the purpose that you've been called to fulfill. Wow, yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I'm going to blow your mind again. We're
okay,
pile right on that.
Come on then.
So there's kind of 4 base money scripts.
Okay.
So I'm going to just walk through them, and then I'm going to focus on one that might resonate with your inner business and the types of people that would listen to this. So we talked a bit already about money status. So money status, that is like net worth is your self-worth. These people typically prone to gambling. They might lie about money, overspend, unhappiness, anxiety, big bets, drive the big truck and they're leveraged up. Money vigilance people, this is money should be saved. Handouts are bad. They never want to buy anything on credit. They have anxiety over money. And in business, this shows up people who are doing well and maybe could and should leverage some funds to grow their business, but they don't want to spend anything. They want to do it all themselves. And that holds you back as well.
So I'm laughing because I'm recognizing some traits here. Carry on.
And we're not all stuck on one. We can have bits and pieces of both.
Yeah.
We can have some that show up in business, some that show up in personal. We have money worship. These are the workaholics who they overspend, make risky decisions. They just want to kind of buy more stuff. And to them, they're chasing money as freedom and happiness.
Okay.
And then we come to the final money script, which is money avoidance. And this is where we might have accepted the suggestion that money equals greed and corruption. We feel undeserving of money. We might feel guilty for desiring money. We avoid thinking about money. We end up rejecting money. We might reject capitalism. So if you have people who have, I've set up a business and I want to help people, but I'm going to chronically undercharge them, and I don't want it to really be a business. I want to be known as a business. And it ends up really hurting them. And I fall into this category as well. I fall into some financial fawning. And when I first was going through this program, I was like, I'm going to learn this stuff and help other people. And then I remember sitting, watching it and being like, oh no, that is me. And it's like a bucket of cold water because we want to appease people. We undervalue ourselves and what we charge. We just kind of reject dealing with the finances, right? So it's like, well, I look at it and, plug my ears and go, la, 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 and just carry on. We lack, boundaries. We overgive and undercharge. Like these things really can hold back our business. And they are, things we've developed to keep us safe, keep us alive. So they're not bad. We don't want to judge them. We don't want to shame them, but we have to do that inner work to kind of get through that shame. We have to learn how to step by step reframe ourselves so we can learn how to understand our business, understand our money story, and then, take some steps to, change it and rewrite that money story.
That's awesome. Like I was giggling away thinking, like you said, I can, in my history, I can see myself in many of those things. Number one, not so much because I am definitely, number four, I don't like money. I used to not like money. I used to associate money with greed to the point where when I was a teenager, I would not even walk into fancy department stores. I would not let myself walk into Selfridges or Harrods because that's disgusting. Why would you go in there? That's capitalism. That's nonsense. I'm going to the market to buy secondhand things because, all these ethical reasons that I told myself. And look, there's nothing wrong. You might find some really ethical products inside that really fancy department store because they've invested money in making sure that all their products are eco-friendly, don't have child labor. They've got the money to do that. I was just making assumptions because I had decided, and my best friend always laughs at me, like she would go to Selfridges and go in just to see if I would follow her, and I would refuse. I just would not cross the threshold. It amused her. Like that is how strongly I went with that. And then the vigilance thing with my first business, Edufolios, I was really struggling to accept investment, really struggling to accept grant funding because it was my business, it was my pie, and I didn't want anyone else to have any control over it. And I had all these stories that were stopping me from accepting financial support and growth and wisdom from the people investing that really slowed my business growth. So I can completely see definitely two of those where in my old business and with all those blocks that I did have, I can't tell you where those things came from. But I can tell you that, I did do the work on that. So Brian's smiling. He's like, I can. Come on, let's work.
I was going to say, we have a little joke in hypnosis, which is there's a session for that.
There's a session for that, yes. But do I need to know? I don't know. Do I need to know?
So the quick hypnosis, we would access your subconscious mind. And usually it's something that you're like, for me, going back, it's these things that don't even seem like a thing. You might look at it and be like, I got that story from that.
Oh, yeah.
And, so I'll tell you one for me is in a quick kind of mini hypnosis session, did a little regression, and our subconscious mind will throw things up to us to like deal with. And I remember sitting in the barbershop chair as like a little kid where they had the little booster seat thingy and just looking at all these signs of advertisements, and they were all, serving you since 1967, serving you since this date. So I accepted this suggestion that businesses are there to serve people. Okay. And serving is about giving and serving. It's not about making money and making profit. So that's the type of thing you could, you pick up as a child and you don't even know about it. The big common one is, money is greed, money is bad. And that comes from, you could be a kid walking around with your grandmother and they see someone rich and it's like that greedy person, and, maybe lay a judgment down on them, and you accept that.
The yuppie culture of the 80s. That's probably what it was.
Yes.
When I was really little, the yuppie culture was a thing. Yeah.
So if you hear people talking about that, we watch movies and the bad guy's always the rich really business person, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we and what happens is, so we reject it, or the other thing I notice is people have different ideas of what that means. So, in Canada anyway, it costs, say $100,000 a year just as like to live a middle class lifestyle. But there's still people who think, oh, if I make $40,000 a year, that's greedy. So like you're not even, and depending where you live, like I know Chantel Chapman from Trauma of Money is from Vancouver area, and in Vancouver it's like $2 million for like a really not very nice little tiny house. So it's like you have to change your reframes sometimes of like how much is even a small amount. And our body and nervous system kind of accepts these numbers or these ideas and then rages against some of those numbers, and we don't even know it. But when we start realizing that, it's freeing, because even learning how do we price our service, and sometimes the right price when you start is whatever is acceptable to your nervous system, because you might have a coach who says, oh, double it and add 10%, and that's what you deserve. And, the hustle bro coaches, charge what you're worth and add this and add that. And if your nervous system doesn't accept that on a deep internal level, then you will struggle to do it, and you won't do it, and you won't do it confidently. And then capitalism wins, because the world doesn't get your, they're not getting your service that's going to help make things better.
Like even the phrase, charge what you're worth. Instantly my brain went, well, how do I know what I'm worth? But if I go back to what you said, and I'm type 1, money is status, and I've written down here, net worth equals self-worth. Like you are attaching a monetary value to your self-worth. Oh, that makes me so sad inside. And if someone says to you, charge what you're worth, and your self-worth is really low, oh my God. Oh, no. And that is, I love how you went there, because people who have that money status script, that's holding them back, because sometimes these are the, I'll use the word hustle bro coaches. And I've met these people in business, and I will tell you, looking at their finances and doing the deep dive, I would not trade places with them. Because they might have the, I got $1 million a year in revenue, but they might be spending 1.5 million to get it. Yeah. There's a difference between what you're bringing in and what you're doing with that money. Absolutely.
And they're, so they have stuff too, but it's easy for them. And then then they'll attach that high price to their worth, and they'll have confidence selling it. Whereas what's probably the, inner business podcast, this whole spiritual world, we get a lot of money avoidance.
I was going to say, that is the narrative I hear a lot.
Who want to help people like them, right? So they've done some things to help themselves and do some work. They want to help more people like that. So may I offer some reframes?
Yeah, please do.
People?
Go for it. We need these reframes.
So one of my favorite one, especially if we're in healing and helping professions, one of the things we have to understand about money is made up. It's not real. It's a story we've all accepted. And I have a color of money in Canada that's really worth nothing to you right now, but it's worth something to me. So it's a made up thing, yet for thousands of years, humans have collectively made it a way of exchange. And if we look at it as a type of energy, it wants to be helpful. So money wants to heal. So if you look at money as medicine, if I am a healer, I need medicine to, help people. So this is one of the ones I use and think about is, money is medicine. So I'm not asking for money because I'm greedy, right? If I ask for it and receive it, I can take care of myself, but it also allows me to invest in my business and help take care of more people and help people change. And I would say from the trauma of money standpoint, most people in the spiritual business are helping people in what is step one, which is accessing their window of resilience. It's helping them, basically I drop it down to like calm down, right? We get our vagus nerve going, we get ourselves regulated, because we also can't make good decisions, and especially not good financial decisions, when we are activated. So unless we're regulated, we're not at the right party. And as you know, and as your listeners know, most people are walking around not regulated. So
the energy is like this. We need to ground, get grounded with your money. Yeah.
So we have to get into that space, and then we can access, what we want. And money is just one of those things where we're just so programmed, and we get so stressed out about it. We get stressed out looking at budgets, or we get stressed out looking at spreadsheets, that we just reject it, and then we never get where we want to go. And that's where this type of work, these types of reframes can really help us kind of remove those blocks, if we use the kind of money block terminology, so that we can move forward.
Yeah. And you said earlier, when you're looking at what you're charging, if I'm thinking about that poor person who's trying to work out how much their self-worth is so they could charge that, that feels so gross to me. Like you said, charge whatever is acceptable to your nervous system. So I'm going to challenge you on that, and I want to see what you want to say, because some of my clients will do that, but what's acceptable to their nervous system doesn't involve looking at how much this retreat they're creating is going to cost them. It doesn't involve, anything that means they have to put themselves out there beyond a certain boundary. So they'll often invite people they already know to come along, and they won't charge them because they'll be friends who run services. So they might say, you come along and run this workshop, and you don't charge me, and I won't charge you. And so they end up running a retreat that is very much aligned to their nervous system, but isn't actually a business venture and isn't making any money. It's just a group of people hanging out and kind of covering costs, if that. So they're not making enough money to get the lifestyle that they want. So they're still running a job, a couple of days a week, trying to pay the bills, but they really want to do this to pay the bills. But there's this thing that's stopping them, charging, because their nervous system, if we go with that phrase, won't let them. So I just want to challenge you on that. I want to see what you would do with that scenario.
Yeah. So that is So on the first glance, that could be, if they're new to business, that could be the way that gets their nervous system comfortable. Is I have to run a retreat with my friends, and I might make no money, but I get to learn how to run the retreat, and I get to learn that I can run a business. So, and this is again the reality of maybe how we grow long term. So having a good coach might say, okay, that's what our goal is this time. So it's not, we might set some boundaries of like, you're not going to lose money, or if you are going to lose money, you've set a boundary of how much you're going to lose, because the goal is, can I invite people to this? Can I understand what I'm going to do, how I'm going to run it? And then maybe next time you run it, it's okay, now I'm going to get a bit uncomfortable and invite some people I don't know and charge them a certain amount. And going through those steps of growing, if I was working with them, I might also look at really diving into what are those things that are getting in the way, and how do we maybe address those so that you do feel confident being able to charge money, or you get some perspective of what's it worth to charge for that. And I think, my own experience is some people, it's like, oh, I want to do retreats and I want it to cost, say $500, but you do the math and it's like, oh, it needs to cost $1,500 for you to actually make money. And that could just be a needed paradigm shift of what the actual business is. I say this because I would love to run a retreat that I want to be at, but I do not want to actually organize it and run it. So it's a problem. So I look for guides to kind of help put that together. And then I look at, okay, what do I actually want this retreat to do? Who do I want to do it for? And then what does it actually need to cost for it to be worthwhile for me to do it? And I would say probably the first one I'm going to do is just with my current clients. And it will probably be, I will probably make no money. It will just be, can I make this a success and a thing people find value in coming to? But I'm definitely not going to lose money on it. And I just have to kind of work on that with my nervous system, right?
Yeah.
And that's where, it's a work in progress. And we need, in my opinion, if we are heroes in our story, we need guides, and we need some different guides. So it might be the, people who do energy work, and people who help with, breath work, relaxation, meditation, other somatic practices. Like all of these different things are helpful tools in helping our nervous system help us grow.
Yeah, and I love that, because often the retreats are full of those wonderful practitioners. So imagine, Brian, if we ran a retreat where we looked at money together with all these practitioners to help us unpack it. I think that's really cool. I love the softness and the openness that you're bringing to this conversation, because a lot of us are very used to, well, you shouldn't run it then. It's not a business. That's why I deliberately used that tone with you. I was trying to push you, but you didn't take the bait. He's so good. Just test it. Just testing you. He passed. So he's soft, isn't he? And I love that, because it is part of the process of being able to step in. But I think you've got to actually make a conscious choice, and this is where a guide like yourself will come in, to be self-aware, to notice that you're not making the money, and to move out of the I'm not making the money, oh, I'll do it again and see, oh, I'm not making the money, oh, I'll do it, the cycle. You got to then ask for the guide to step in, and then you've got to be, like you say, willing to sit in the next level of discomfort that you can handle, and then maybe make sure your retreat's got some nice somatic work in it to help you with that. And build yourself up until it takes time, right? Build yourself up until you're making the money that you want.
And we take it as a journey because, as you know, building a business, so few people will ever even try. So few people will take the intent to start. Even fewer will make $1, and even fewer will grow from that. And we have to go through those stages and grow it slowly. And when we give up, the big retreats win, or the big corporations who do things end up winning, and we're not even participating in it. I would suggest, if it's retreats specifically, get a couple practitioners together, and that makes for a better retreat, and then go hunting who can afford to be there, because they're going to get a lot of benefit out of being around those types of people. And I know for me, like if I were designing that retreat, it's probably 3 or 4 different practitioners, and most of them are business owners I know who don't make a lot. So I would just, allow them to maybe come and trade of some of their services, but they're going to add value and perspective to the core business audience who's there. And then it's going to create something that people want to come back to.
And hopefully they'll generate leads for themselves as well, that those customers will return to them individually as well. I mean, is that true? I mean, the other thing that comes to mind as you're talking is a lot of my clients will say they can't charge what they need to charge because they don't want to exclude people. They want to support all the people, and not all the people can afford this. So they feel bad about charging, I'm not going to say what it's worth, but what it costs plus something for them. They've got a story there that means that they feel like they're being unfair to somebody. I'm not sure who this body is. And I love that conversation. How would you handle that conversation?
I love this because I'm there as well. I overextend myself and do too many things because I want to be accessible to every business. And the reality is, if we talk about charge what it's worth, if I'm helping somebody go from $100,000 a year profit to $200,000 a year, that's got a pretty good price tag to it. If I'm helping someone go from losing money a year to breaking even, there's still a value to that, but they don't have the cash. So conceptually, it makes sense to have some differentiated pricing. How we do that and how Trauma of Money does it. So Trauma of Money costs about, I'll say $2,000 for the course. I'm not sure how many people are in, but each cohort's probably a couple hundred people. Not everybody's paying $2,000 to be there. So they have a ratio as they reimagine capitalism and how they run their business, which is kind of, for every, say, 10 registrations, we have a space that's a 50% fee. And then for so many, we might have a 25% kind of fee. And then I know they have some scholarships as well, or they might have some, alumni who are making a lot of money, and they say, I would like to sponsor, some people to take this. So there's ways to reimagine it so you can still be accessible to those people and run a business. And it's navigating and rethinking those things so we're not just falling into those kind of shame-based, you can do this or you can't, or when people, those limiting beliefs of, I can't charge that, I just can't possibly do it. So we're challenging that with grace and mindfulness, and allowing you to win at both. The discomfort in that is, if you're going to do that and you have all these friends and people you want to help kind of on scholarships, now you have to go, do some good brand script marketing, find your target market, create something people want, and sell it at that full ticket price to enough people where this could still be a business for you.
Yeah. And that's
it is all about balance.
Yeah, I love that. And I've seen some of my clients do things like, like at the coffee shop where you can pay it forward. They'll have a pay it
Yes.
forward option. So you can buy two basically, and you can do an anonymous donation, and then there'll be announcements saying, we've got this ticket, here's how you apply for it, that kind of thing. So yeah, like not seeing it in your head in the story in that black and white binary yes no way, and getting creative. And those suggestions you made were really, really cool. I love that. Yeah, because these are just some of the really common things that come up. And you're right in saying that it might start with a money block, like, oh, I can't charge them that, I want them to be able to afford it. But then is there also another story in there about, well, if I do start charging X, then I'm actually going to have to step up, and I'm going to have to do this work, and I'm going to have to show up in I don't know if differently is the right way, because we want everyone to build a business that's 100% authentic to who they are. But what's really interesting about doing that is that sometimes we're not aware that we're not behaving 100% in our full authenticity, because we're showing up as we think we should show up, not what is actually in our heart and in our purpose and in our life design. I just find that really interesting when you said, oh, but then you're going to have to get this. I thought, oh, and everyone's like, oh no, oh, that sounds like work. I don't want to do that.
So I'll share, and these are things I am actively working through myself, as I call it getting kind of punched in the face, or these kind of cold water poured over me moments of really seeing and knowing who I am and doing my own work. Is a lot of this we look at, there's some financial shame shows up, and I'll first address, you said should a couple times, the should monster shows up. Mm-hmm. One of the things I learned in trauma of money is anytime the should monster shows up, I ask two questions. Based on what? According to who? And like in hypnosis, I have a little technique where we could give that shame back to the person who gave it to us, which is a helpful technique. But we're looking at shame, and for me, I've had to come face to face with, I've lived under this veil of shame my whole life, and behind that is a fear. And there's a fear of being seen. And for me, it's I have a fear of being seen as unsuccessful, and a fear of being seen as successful or standing out in any way. So there is this, well, if I do charge this, or if I do commit to this, now I got to show up like that. And that's the discomfort of, even in BMS, Business Made Simple, as an onboarding coach. When I applied for that, I did not think they would pick me out of all the wonderful coaches in the community. And then you have to show up for that first one and be like, oh, I'm doing this right now. And it's uncomfortable, and that fear could show up, and it's getting the tools to learn how to manage that, knowing that it is all connected and it's not your fault. And we're so programmed with shame in a business, or oh, you did a retreat and you didn't make any money, well, you're a failure. It's I thought you were a girl boss who made lots of money. So we shame ourselves, and then we exit.
Well, the opposite. I was talking to someone in a shop a couple of months ago who was basically shaming anyone who charged for a service that was a spiritual service, because that is wrong. And I'm like, wow, okie doke. I just, okay. I didn't go down that hole because, yeah. But I was like, wow, that's the opposite. You're shaming people because they want to let the money energy do its thing. They want the money energy to be free to flow from one place to the other. And you're shaming people for that. And there's a lot of that happens in the community.
It's a lot. And again, there's some trauma of money stuff showing up, and people that you can call in and invite to do some of their own work. I would say, this spiritual type work's been happening for thousands and thousands of years. There's no way anybody just showed up and got free services the whole time. As a community, we barter, we trade, you might bring them dinner and do something. So there's always a exchange of some sort. And money is that medicine. It's the thing we've chosen as humans to exchange. So
that's it. It's all it is. Yeah.
Doing the work to get around that. I'll offer a couple other kind of things that really stand out when we have these conversations. And one is the idea of learning to forgive yourself. And people might do things like, well, I can't run a business because I, ran a credit card up and was in bad debt years ago, or I'm not good at making money decisions. We have to learn to forgive ourselves for the things we did to survive. And that's kind of one of those core things of letting go of things in the past. We can then replace it with, in trauma of money, they kind of sneak this everywhere. It's a statement, I can be trusted with money. So even if you're listening to this now, you just take yourself a deep breath and, go into a little meditative state, repeat to yourself a few times, I can be trusted with money. See what comes up. That can be a lot of resistance for some, and it could hit us at that unworthiness, and it's a sign of something that we can deal with. But trusting yourself with money, trusting yourself as a healer, trusting that money is medicine, forgiving your past money behaviors, understanding you can reprogram, you can rewrite your money story, which is kind of loops up to why I'm here and why I just love the idea of really digging in to help people rewrite those stories and unpack these things that they just hold us back, and the world suffers because of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love how, we started the conversation talking about how you like looking at financial statements and could see the stories, and we've really dove into so many different kinds of stories there in different lenses. It's been really beautiful, and I really want to thank you for your real open-heartedness, your softness, your compassion, and your genuine energy that is all about that grace and compassion, and very much not about shame, but there's no kind of hard edges to the way you operate. It's really beautiful. It's very open. It's gorgeous. I love it very much.
Thank you. It can be very frustrating sometimes too, because people, I think, show up wanting me to tell them what to do, or they're expecting me to be mad at them. But really, we get to choose what we want for our business. And part of the hard work is understanding, what is that story we do want? Why are we in business? What do we want to create? How do we want to reimagine capitalism? How do I want to pay my employees? What do I want to do? And then it's doing the hard work to get there. But luckily we have tools for that. So, we have Business Made Simple, we have StoryBrand. And I firmly believe that, Donald Miller talks about, we are hardwired for story and to interpret story. And I, at my core, believe that that's true. So using the framework of story helps us do this work. And then the analogy of the Business Made Simple airplane, it calms us down whenever we start imagining. And if we imagine our business as an airplane, we are regulating our nervous system and calming down and imagining, which is just a much better place to create and design the business for your life than spreadsheets you don't understand and someone yelling at you about how you don't understand really complicated tax policies, right?
You don't need to. That's not your job. Your job is to go, I got this money. Look at this. What should we do with it, accountant friend? Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you're right. The airplane is so fun, particularly, and I will try and add a photo of it in when we do the edit, the little airplane that's a little bit not quite put together properly, and he's so cute, and he's got little ditty wings that he goes around in circles. And when I share that with my clients, they're like, oh, I've got one of those. And you're like, okay, right, cool. So let's get your plane flying that way and going up. They're like, they love that. So absolutely, like, and I love the richness and depth of this conversation around the fact that we have unconscious stories. And that's what this podcast is all about, the inner business of business, So when you notice that there's a problem, what do? Like you said there, take a breath and repeat that mantra of I can be trusted with money. And then you said, what comes up? Now those moments where we pause, we stop, drop and reflect is kind of how I say it, but we pause, we're in that energy of groundedness with our breath, and we just quietly listen to what our business is showing us. It is always something about ourselves. It is such a beautiful relationship if you allow it to be. So I love this conversation. Yeah, is there anything that you would want to share, like a burning final statement that you would want the listeners to walk away with at the end of this podcast as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think what you just said was so apt because, before we started recording, I said this conversation will go where it needs to go. And it is our inner business. You get to choose your business. I get to choose my business. Everything we talked about, low key, was for me. It reinforces the work that I'm doing. So, my shame base, my perfectionism used to be the type of guide who thought I had to know everything before I, did it or worked in it. And now it's like, well, I'm the guide on the path who's like been a little bit further ahead and is going to come back and like lead you where to go. And I'm grateful for this conversation because it's helping me think about what's just coming up in my mind and what's the advice that I said that's for me to remember and for me to, repeat over and over. And, a lot of these things I said I have kind of a daily self-hypnosis list of things that I go through, are things I'm working on. And it's not it's not a quick fix. It's not I read this book and now I can do everything right and perfect. It is a journey, and, we need different guides on the journey. And if anyone's resonating with this and would like to reach out to me, I would love to, have a conversation and see what tools we can bring. Reach out to Selena as a really great business coach, and, working on the engines of the airplane, with you. I think there's people who want to help, and we are hardwired to connect. And we need other people, so that's
we do.
That's
it's
my
really important
thing.
I'm with you on that, and I agree. I second that. Like my whole thing is I built a business and I made it the success, and it was 6 figures and it was great and I won awards, and it just didn't feel great. It just felt heavy, and like I used to describe it towards the end as the albatross. It was just weighing me down, and I built this business based on all the shoulds. Should do this, should do that, should do that. Oh look, I'm successful now because I've ticked the box. And then I had this beautiful beast that worked beautifully and was all systemized and gorgeous and did all the things that all the books said it should, and I got it behaving, but it just left me really heavy. So this is why the work that Brian's doing here, with the trauma of money work, along with his brilliant knowledge of story and his gorgeous compassionate soul, is so important, because you have got stories. I managed to build an entire successful business using those stories, and then went, oh, whoops. And I love if you're listening and you were a former client of Edufolios, I loved you and I loved what I was doing with you, but I am a teacher, I'm a coach, and sitting at this desk every day running a software company was just not me. So it was amazing in the end. This is the story, and that's not the typical story of a business coach, is it? It's like, oh, I'm successful, I have 5 businesses and I've ticked all the boxes. No, we are open-hearted coaches who are like, yeah, we made loads of mistakes, do you want to avoid those? Here's how you do that.
And that's, to me, those are the better guides. The people who have only witnessed success, don't know how to fail. And what I love about your story is just a reminder, like, I'm helping people rewrite, I say rewrite your money story. It's your money story. And you might have built a business the the right way and did all those right things. But if it's not your story, you get to choose. Like, you don't get any extra awards for doing things that you should do.
No.
Right? Like,
No.
It's really, in your life, it's your story. You get to write it. You get to create it. And there's probably a lot of people listening to this right now who are not living in the money story that they want for themselves. And you get to rewrite it. No one else is going to rewrite it for you.
Absolutely. So if you want Brian's help to work through all of those beautiful strategies and rewrite your money story, which I love, then you can head to profitcoach.ca. I'll make it appear here. And also head to the show notes of this episode, and I will make sure that all of these things that you've mentioned, Brian, are all there on the show notes. But yeah, Brian, thank you so much. This has been a beautiful conversation, and I hope everybody heads to profitcoach.ca to connect with you and take you up on a free conversation with Brian. Oh, you get to do this one-on-one with Brian. Do it now. Profitcoach.ca. Thanks, Brian.
Oh, thank you so much.